All right, today we're going to work more with changing fractions to decimals and decimals to fractions. So notice that this tells us how many decimal places we'll have. This tells us hundreds, which is great. That tells me that the last number needs to end up in the hundreds place. And that's what they're showing you here. So when we have a number over 100, you literally just put a decimal in front of it. And the same goes if it's over 10. So on this page, you're only going to do evens, so don't get overwhelmed by the number of problems there are. We're only doing evens in class. So let's take a look at this. It says change each fraction to the decimal. So if it's over 10, we're going to change it to be the tenths place. This tells me that the denominator says tenths, so this tells me that's 5/10. Number 3 gives us a mixed number, and don't be afraid of mixed numbers. That just means we put the decimal between the fraction and the whole number. So 1 and then I read this fraction as 7/10. So I know it's like that. Number 7 says 1 and 27/100. So I'm going to go 27. Number 10 tries to trick you because normally you guys are just putting the decimal right there. But if I just write this like that and I read this, I have 5/100. But if I read this, I have 5/10. So we need to be aware, and that's what they're showing you up there, that this needs to end up in the hundreds place. So I'm going to put my decimal and I'm going to go tenths, hundreds. Well, I have an empty space there, so I put a 0. The next batch, they want us to change the decimal to a fraction. So I'm going to, because this is 6/10, I read it. I'm going to go 6/10. And yes, I know that's not in simplest form. We're going to get there. I really just want you to be able to put them over tenths or hundreds. So now we have a decimal with the whole number in it. So I'm going to go 1 and, I read it 1 and 7/10. Number 23, I read this as 9/100. So that'd be 9/100. So I think those ones should be pretty easy for you. Number 25 and 26, they're kind of mean to you. They give you both a fraction and a decimal on both of them. Do what you guys know. Put it back into fraction mode. You guys know how to do this. So Jana lives 7/10 of a mile from school. Peter lives 0.8 mile from school. How much further does Peter live? So further tells me I'm doing subtraction problem. So I'm going to have 7/10 minus 0.8. And that doesn't work in our brain. So let's change this one, 0.8, to a fraction. I know that's 8/10, so I'm just going to write that over tenths and get rid of the decimal. If I could use my eraser, there we go. And I put it in the wrong order. That's okay. We'll just erase it and go 7/10 because it says how much further does Peter live. That tells me he lives further away. So I know that 8 minus 7 is 1. And I have 1/10, and don't forget to label it. Some numbers don't like to be naked. Mile. So 135. They're going to have us comparing numbers. So Joe, Carlos, and Greg are looking at some straws to see who gets to go first. when we build these out, remember these are the tenths and the hundredths. So I have tenths and hundredths. It's really easy to see how I have more. Like I rather have 2 dimes than 1 dime. So I know that 18 hundredths is the least. So I'm going to put that down here. 18 hundredths. Then we have 21 hundredths and then 24 hundredths. Now when I look at a number and I look at 389 and I want to know which is bigger, 398, and we put that little box in there and you're going to tell me which one's bigger. I know that 100 is more than tens. So remember, we're going to keep going this way. Who has the biggest number as we go along? And then we come to our tens place, and I know that 8 is smaller than 9, so this is the bigger number. That's the same when we're doing it with these. I know that 0.21, I'm going to compare that to 0.24 or 24 hundredths. My tenths are the same because I'm going this way, and now I see 1 versus a 4. Well, I know that 4 is bigger, so that's going to be bigger. So 0.21 and 0.24. Again, you're only doing even, so don't get overwhelmed by the number of problems you have to do. So when I'm looking at number 1, I'm looking at 5 tenths versus 8 tenths. 5 dimes versus 8 dimes. 8 tenths is bigger. Now let's look at number 5. Well, I have 69 hundredths versus 96 hundredths. When I'm going this direction, this 9 is bigger than that 6, so it's bigger like that. I think you guys can do these. Now, they want us to order from least to greatest, from smallest to biggest. And you guys totally know how to do this. So I'm going to do number 13 for you because 10 and 12 are decimals and 13 is the decimal. So I'm going to start and I'm going to go this way. And I'm going to see I have 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. All right. So that 2, I automatically know that one's biggest. So I'm going to put that over here. 2.0. So I know I'm done. Now I got to look at the tenths place. I have 2, 5, 3, 0. 0 is the smallest. So I'm going to use that one over here. And then when I'm looking at the next one, I see 1.2 and then 1.3 and then 1.5 or 1 and 5 tenths. Number 14 and 15, they want you to figure out which number statement is true by comparing these two numbers. So when I'm looking at number 15, I have 4 and 89 hundredths and 4 and 88 hundredths. Well, I know that 89 is bigger than 88, so this one's not true. They are definitely not equal, which is what they give me for C and D. But my 9 is definitely bigger than my 8. So that is B. Come to office hours if you need help.